Good afternoon, and welcome to another unwarranted episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now, here's your unsurpassed and unmitigated host, Voice of Doom. Hello. I haven't done a diatribe in a couple of days, so I figured you guys were missing me. So figured I'd stick more of my 2 cents in. Didn't want to revisit this subject, but I did a diatribe regarding the issue of the day, and I didn't like it because it was meandering, and I wanted to expand on my theory about termination of pregnancy and/or the reproductive rights of people with uteruses. And I am still perplexed, and I'm more disgusted. But in my last diatribe, I believe I offered the suggestion that since they want to keep on pushing the envelope on when termination is possible, I said any parent should have the right to terminate their kid as long as that parent lives. And it would help keep children more in line if the sword of Damocles was hovering over their head for the entire time their parents were alive, or one parent. But I have more suggestions, and that is a little more acerbic, a little more snarky. But it occurred to me as I was watching the mobs and their behavior that if you feel that strongly about abortion that you would take to the streets and protest something that is not even effectual, doesn't have any bearing on life whatsoever right now, then I would hope that they would always abort and never have kids, because I discovered after living for a while that your kids take on your traits. My wife and I had 2 kids, and both of them have our traits. Not just physical traits, but mental traits, emotional traits, philosophical and moral traits. It could be nurture, it could be nature, but if you are the kind of person that has to go out to the street to advocate for infanticide, then I would suggest not having kids ever, because we don't really need that strain of genetics in the human gene pool. So you should always abort. Don't even procreate. Don't even get in a position where you have to abort. And you might even want to abort yourself, because it might be best for all concerned. Now, someone who agrees with me would be someone by the name of Margaret Louise Higgins, born in 1879, married William Sanger, and became Margaret Sanger. She was the first open public advocate for birth control, and her pioneering ways in the early 20th century led the way for Planned Parenthood. She more or less founded it. Now, I wanted to get into a bit of her life because it's very interesting. The internet has kind of, and I'll use the term, whitewashed her reputation for obvious reasons, because you're only a white supremacist if you're not on the side of the wokesters. And if you're on the side of the wokesters, then no matter how overtly white supremacist you are, it's quite all right, as long as you're on the right side. And she was on the right side, so they want to play down the fact that she believed in genetic manipulation, or just weeding out undesirable genes. Now, she was talking birth defects, low IQ, but it was implied that she also meant certain minorities to control their population, control their procreating. Now, after she spoke with the women's of the KKK, little cotillion, little luncheon, she ingratiated herself with the people of color by explaining how her theories of controlling birth will be a benefit to them. So people like W.E.B. Du Bois and people of that nature kind of teamed up with her. So it's all very controversial, and we could argue back and forth. But she did want to how did they put it? She just wanted to purify the genetic strains of human beings, and she thought she could improve it by not allowing certain people to have kids. Now, birth control became a free speech issue back in those days. It's not only a privacy issue, but it's a free speech issue because there were laws at the time called the Comstock laws. And that was named after Arthur Comstock, 1844 to 1915, anti-vice activist. Wanted to adopt Christian values, and he wanted to prosecute and not allow any talk of contraception or abortion. So you couldn't even talk about it. It was against the law for Margaret Sanger to even talk about birth control back in the 20s and 30s. So, since she wasn't allowed to speak, she gagged herself in front of the audience, and one Arthur Schlesinger Sr. read her speech. So, maybe he went to jail, who knows. But she was vocal, and in the old days they had what they call unsafe abortions, back alley abortions, by using such things as hangers, knitting needles. What else did they use? Drinking bleach, Lysol, toxic chemicals, plant poison, pens, many number of ways. One girl even had her boyfriend beat her with a bat to induce an abortion, to induce a miscarriage. So it's a sad subject. I don't really like to talk about it, but I will talk about the political ramifications of what's going on right now. First of all, they're wasting their time, and they don't even know what they're talking about. And I got no dog in this fight. I still think that it's a personal matter, and it's something that people should have to make for themselves and not be incited and or intimidated by the mob, such as they want to intimidate judges. Now, first of all, I've already said Roe versus Wade only says that abortion is, legal throughout the land. But it never did anything else other than that. It never made any distinction or codified, as they say. And now that they're saying we want to overturn this possibly, the mob is saying, get SCOTUS hands off our bodies. And basically, SCOTUS is saying we are getting our hands off your bodies. What we're doing right now is getting our hands off your bodies. But you're still complaining. You're complaining because you know it's going back to the states, and some states are going to be draconians, and some states are going to be, let's kill them until they're 18 or 19. So that's what people are afraid of. But they're barking up the wrong tree. They're intimidating judges who are actually doing what they want them to do. So they don't know what they're doing, do they? And I saw some terrible, horrible things. And sometimes I think that some people might even be plants, might be from the other side and doing absolutely bizarre things, just absolutely shouting and singing praises for abortion, and God loves abortion, and doing weird performance art, pretending to kill babies on the street. It's really ugly. These people are turning vicious, and I'm sorry to tell them, I really hate to do it, but they're galvanizing the other side. I know they are. They're not helping their side one bit, because their side is full of people that don't think. So they probably won't be able to figure out how to vote anyway. But I think they're galvanizing the other side, because I'm a little galvanized by watching some of this crap of people pulling things out of their you-know-whats and slashing them up and just acting primeval, acting primordial, vicious, and acting like it's a badge of honor to kill your offspring for some reason. And it's gone beyond just women's health rights. They don't even bother saying that anymore. They say kill. They say murder your baby. It's quite all right. And that's a woman's right, or I'm sorry, that's a person with a uterus's right to choose. So when it comes to that kind of viciousness, I say go for it, abort, and then kill yourself. And I've looked at the crowds and the mobs, and most of these women, I don't know what bone they have to pick, because they don't look like they're ever going to be impregnated by looking at them. I would say the odds of anyone actually depositing sperm into their plumbing is very low. And I would imagine most of them have the sexual orientation where having kids naturally is anathema. But they'll probably get in a relationship and deliberately have a kid so they can abort it. So that makes a lot of sense. One lady says, "Oh, I'd like to have sex with the guy who leaked this, but if he's a Republican, I'll have an abortion gladly with joy." Really sick. And in the last few minutes, I'll talk about one other comment. Most black babies are better off being aborted because if they're adopted, they will die. That was said by some idiot, I don't know who. And I was talking to my mom today and got mixed feelings on that statement, because we adopted a half-black girl, and she looked very black. That was when she was about 6 months. And we raised her, and we treated her like every other part of the family. And I know that she had problems even at an early age, because she probably looked at herself in the mirror and said, "I don't look like my parents. I don't look like my brothers and sisters. So I'm an, outcast." She ended up being bipolar and borderline personality. She was sometimes dangerous to live with. She spent many years in institutions, and she spent many years on the street. And she had 3 kids and adopted all 3 of them out. So obviously she was totally irresponsible. Because you make one mistake, that's okay, but you do it 3 times. But the upshot of it was 2 of the kids didn't turn out well. One died at 21 from heart disease. One is in jail, and the other one is a productive member of society with a child of her own. And my mom still keeps in contact with those kids, because even if they were adopted, they're still part of the family. And my sister at least had the integrity to, give birth and put them up for adoption, even if it was stupid. And she died just when she was getting her life together. My sister died at about the age of 35, and she was just starting to get things together where she wasn't on drugs all the time. Died of heart failure. So I'm of different minds on that. I just wanted to throw in that little anecdote from my past, how it pertains. I don't know. Just see people getting vicious. I see people's real ugly nature coming out. And I don't want to think about their karmic retributions. I don't like to think about the kind of people that march out in the street and shout for rights that people with uteruses already have. And it's very doubtful that they'll be taken away. Maybe in certain counties and certain very conservative states, but other than that, it's with us forever. So they're just bitching about nothing, and they're idiots. And I hope they abort everything they procreate, and then I hope they abort themselves. See, that's it. I think I'm going to post this one. And have a happy life, because you're lucky enough to have been born.